I stood at the edge of what used to be a sturdy dam guarding the valley, a dam that now was nothing but a broken wall as a wild river surged through the lands. Where once peaceful meadows lay, a new housing project had sprouted without my permission. They called it Stonebridge Estates, but it was built on my family's old property without my consent. That's me in the picture, if you could see it. You might wonder how I ended up watching a flood wipe out a whole neighborhood, and why no one could stop it. The trouble began when they tried to steal what my great-grandfather left me. When he died, I thought I'd inherited more than just land. The property stretched over rolling hills and thick woods, with a dam at its core. My great-grandfather had built it by hand after a devastating flood years ago. It wasn't just stone and mortar. It was a symbol of resilience and protection, something his hands had fought hard to create. The will was clear. All the land, water rights, everything on that soil was mine. For years, I kept the place in shape, working a job in town, spending weekends fixing fences and walking the dam's crest, watching seasons change. Then one day, a letter arrived. It had a fancy gold seal I didn't recognize. Stonebridge Homeowners Association. I frowned. I never joined any HOA. My land was outside the city limits, protected by old zoning rules my great-grandfather helped put in place decades ago. The letter said I was now under community rules, thanks to new county maps approved quietly in a recent town meeting. I went to the next meeting to find a man with slick hair proudly showing maps that swallowed my land into their development plan like it was theirs all along. I confronted them. That's when I met Susan Harris, the HOA president. Full of charm, but sharp as a knife. She claimed it was a clerical mistake, an easy fix. But over the next weeks, surveyors marched through my fields, sticking neon flags in the ground like they owned it. Bulldozers came, cutting roads and laying foundations right where I'd grown up. I hired a local lawyer, a good man, but even he looked uneasy when he saw the names on the papers. County officials dodged me, files vanished, and every time I complained, Susan just smiled sweetly, her boar behind her like soldiers. At the next meeting, she offered to buy me out with a fake sympathy that made my blood boil. I told them loud and clear, I would never sell what my family built. Not for money, not ever. That's when things turned ugly. Violation notices appeared on my truck. Fines piled up. One morning, I found a no trespassing sign in my own yard. The sheriff shrugged when I called, said it was a civil dispute. Doors closed in my face everywhere I went. Then I learned Susan's HOA had been greasing palms, donations to council members, zoning waivers, behind-the-scenes deals that meant they were untouchable. For every complaint I filed, they threatened to sue me for harassment. I realized I couldn't fight them head-on, so I stopped showing up at meetings. I let their stakes stay in my land, their flags flutter in the wind. I watched them celebrate new streets and sales, while I quietly gathered proof. Photos of broken fences, damaged trees, illegal construction. I saved every letter, every shady approval. I didn't stop the development. I let them think they'd won. But the mountain remembers. The dam was old but strong, built from sweat and grit. It held back floods for decades. But the builders of Stonebridge ignored it. They paved over drainage, rerouted streams, and even let machinery scrape the dam's edge, weakening it. They thought paper rules meant the land was theirs. They didn't understand that water follows its own laws, gravity, pressure, the ancient paths etched into the earth. So I let nature take its course. When the first heavy rains came, I watched from my porch as cracks appeared in sidewalks and walls. Water pooled where it shouldn't, seeping into basements and swallowing streets. Susan stood in her fancy house. Phone pressed her ear, blaming the weather. Emergency crews scrambled, but it was too late. Days later, the dam gave way. The river crashed down like a beast unleashed. Homes were swallowed, streets buckled, power lines snapped. Susan's mansion was the last to fall, cracking in half as the earth beneath it liquefied. I watched silently, heart pounding, not with joy, but with a grim sense of justice. I had warned them, but they refused to listen. The aftermath was chaos. Insurance adjusters came, but claims were denied. Lawsuits piled up. Susan tried blaming everyone but herself. Her empire crumbled, her fortune lost. Meanwhile, I filed to reclaim the land legally. The ruined lots, the broken streets, they all reverted back to me. No one contested. I spent months rebuilding the dam, with a few old friends who remembered the land's old ways. We worked quietly, no cameras, under the same sun that baked my great-grandfathers back years ago. I let the wild grasses grow over the ruined streets and watched deer return to the forest. One crisp morning, I put up a wooden sign at the entrance. Welcome to Riverbend Preserve. Respect the land. I sat on the rebuilt dam, sipping coffee, watching the valley stretch out in golden green. The scars of Stonebridge remained, but in time, nature would heal them. I thought about my great-grandfather, about the floods he fought, and about the flood that finally gave me back what was mine. And I thought about Susan, her kingdom built on lies, now just a cautionary tale. The mountain rumbled softly beneath me, not in anger, but in quiet approval. The land remembers. It endures. I raised my cup in a silent toast, to the past, to the land, and to a future rebuilt on respect. The flood was more than a disaster. It was a reckoning. It wasn't just water rushing through Stonebridge Preserve. It was nature reclaiming its voice, a powerful reminder that some forces can't be controlled or silenced by contracts, courts, or greed. Watching the destruction unfold, I understood that this was no ordinary battle between landowner and developer. It was a clash between respect and recklessness, between legacy and short-sightedness. The land I inherited wasn't just dirt and trees. It was a living history, a testament to my great-grandfather's grit and love for this valley. He didn't build that dam out of convenience or ambition. It was born of necessity and hope, a shield against chaos. For decades, it stood firm, guarding our home through storms that could have swallowed everything. When I saw it break, it felt like the earth itself was delivering a verdict. Stonebridge's builders ignored the lessons written in the soil and stone. Their smooth talk and legal papers meant nothing when the rains came. All their carefully painted plans crumbled beneath the weight of the water they tried to defy. In their rush for progress, they forgot the one rule the mountain always keeps: respect the land, or it will remind you who's really in charge. But this story isn't just about destruction. It's about patience, resilience, and the slow, steady healing that follows even the worst storms. I didn't tear down their work in anger. I let nature do the hard part. And now, with the dam rebuilt and the wild grasses growing again, there's a quiet peace returning to the valley. This land belongs to those who honor it, not the ones who see it as a blank canvas for quick profit. It belongs to those who listen to the old stories whispered by the wind through the trees, to the steady pulse beneath the soil. I carry my great-grandfather's stubborn hope in my hands and heart, a promise to protect this place for those who will come after me. Watching the sun rise over Riverbend Preserve, I felt the weight of responsibility and the gift of renewal. The scars of Stonebridge will fade in time, but the lesson it left will never be forgotten. It's a reminder that no matter how much people try to bend the world to their will, some things remain untouchable. The earth holds its truths close, and when pushed too far, it pushes back with a force that can't be stopped. Susan's kingdom was built on shortcuts and deceit, and it fell just as quickly as it rose. But what rises from the flood is something stronger, a deep respect for the land, and a renewed understanding that progress isn't about domination. It's about balance. This valley will heal, and so will the stories etched into its hillsides. In the end, I didn't just inherit land. I inherited a legacy, one that demands vigilance and respect, patience and care. The mountain still speaks, its rumble a slow heartbeat beneath my feet, reminding me that this land is alive and watching. As long as someone listens, it will endure. So I stand here, not as a conqueror or a victor, but as a guardian. The flood was nature's way of setting things right. And with every stone laid and every blade of grass returned, I am reminded that the true power lies not in ownership or power, but in humility before the land that sustains us all.